All right, what's going on, guys? We're live. Let me know how I sound. I got a new mic, so if something sounds weird, off, let me know right away and I'll work on fixing it. While I wait for people to get in here and talk to you guys watching the replay, if you guys miss the live streams, I do them every morning, Sunday morning at 9 a.m. Pacific. I talk about a bunch of different topics. Sometimes I'll do live coding, sometimes I'll do live design, sometimes, I'll just do Q&A. But if you want to catch these live streams, go ahead. Obviously, if you're a subscriber, great, thank you. If not, make sure you hit that bell notification. That'll give you the notifications for when I go live, because I get a lot of people messaging me like, oh, I keep missing the stream, I keep missing the stream. So if you want to get notifications, go ahead and do that. So what are we going to talk about today? Before I dive into the chat, we're going to talk about kind of like finding your workflow and your groove when you're programming. And this is just very topical for me right now because this past week I've like really hit my groove on like a certain project, and it's been awesome. Like this is like when programming is like super fun. So I want to talk about like how I get into that groove, why I think that happened, and kind of just describe what's going on. So as usual, I'm going to kind of catch up on all the pleasantries in the chat, but as usual, feel free to ask a bunch of questions. I'm going to talk for a few minutes, and then I'll kind of just basically dive into some Q&A. This is going to be a shorter live stream, probably about 30 minutes. If you guys have been following my vlogs or like Twitter or whatever, like you guys know I play basketball all the time, huge. I'm injured lately, like I have tendonitis in my elbow, so I haven't been able to play for 3 weeks. And it finally feels good. I'm going to test it out this morning. So the game is at 10 a.m. Pacific time. So I'm going to do the stream from 9 to 9:30, and then hopefully go test out the injury and play some ball. So it is going to be a little shorter of a stream, but just, expect that. But yeah, anyway, go ahead and ask some questions. We're going to say what's up to everybody. What's going on, Mohammed? First here, Genghis Khan. Mark, good to see you again. Swift Summit's coming up soon, but like next weekend, I think. Yeah, so hopefully I'll see you there. Sankit says it sounds fine. Thanks for the audio. Like I said, I got my new Blue Yeti mic here. There you go. Slowly but surely, this live stream setup's coming. The next step is going to be, I'm still using my FaceTime camera on my laptop. So the next step is going to be actually like streaming it through my camera. And I think once I get that done, the setup will be pretty good. I just got to get out of this like corner that I'm in, and the voice has some echo into it, but I probably won't do that. So Greg says, hi, Sean. Totally need that groove right now. Yeah, hopefully this helps. And I'm going to describe like the combination of things that I think got me there. And then maybe you can kind of apply that to your, what's going on in your workflow. Excuse me. Yeah. Oleg, what's going on? Ritish says, how do you get freelancer project off-site? I'll get into the Q&A after this. I'm just going to say what's up to everybody. What's going on? Nicholas, yo, good to see you. Oleg from Russia. Ryan, what's going on? Samira, can you do a tutorial on auto layouts? I do plan on doing that soon. Get a lot of questions about that, mainly constraints. All right, yo, watch it from work. I like it. I like the dedication. Okay, so let me dive into the whole like workflow, what I'm talking about here. So there's 3 like things that all kind of came together and why I believe I'm in this flow. First, let me describe it. Like I said, I've been able to focus on one project this past week. As you guys know, if you followed along, I've been on like 4 to 5 contracts and kind of just splitting my time here and there. Like, I'll do a couple hours on this project, a couple hours on that project. And it's been, when you're doing that, it's hard to really get into the flow on one project. So that has helped a ton. And the reason I am able to focus on one project is because 2 of the other contracts, we just got done with a major release. So, we did like our first like 1.0 release, and now we're waiting on the work to be done for like 1.1 and 1.2. And as you might know, when you're developing the client, all the back-end server work has to get done for the new features. The designer has to design the new screen flows. So I have to wait for all that work to be done before I can actually like start my job. So that opened up the window for me to really focus on this one project. So that's the first factor that I think came into play, is like I can literally give 95% of my time to one project, which for my workflow is pretty rare because, again, I'm on so many contracts. So that's the first one. The second one is it's actually a project like I'm excited about. I've shared a little bit of the designs in my Slack channel on the Patreon page. I won't plug that now. Maybe I'll plug it later. But so I've showed off a little bit of the designs, but like I'm genuinely excited about the project. As you know, some of the contracts I've been on, or you may have been on, you don't necessarily, it's not your product. You're not getting to pick it. So you may not be interested in the actual product. Like, for example, I built a social network for people who buy and sell horses. Not really interested in that. However, this app is like a fitness app, health and wellness, diet and stuff like that. And I am into that stuff. So 1, I really like the product. I like working on it. 2, I've owned the code base. I built the entire code base from the ground up. I always like those projects. It's always rough kind of going into other people's code bases. That's a little trickier to work on rather than a code base you built from scratch. So I'm excited about the project. The designs are great. I really like how it looks. So like when this app is done, which we're aiming for, towards the end of the year, this will be at the top of my portfolio. Like this will be the one I show off the most. This will be, definitely like the crown of the portfolio. That's probably the wrong term. It'll be the crown jewel. That's what I was looking for. So I'm like super excited to get this done. Super excited to finish it. In fact, last night, like I couldn't sleep last night. So I might be a little groggy right now. So I got out of bed at normally when I can't sleep, I'll just toss and turn and eventually fall asleep. But I literally got out of my bed at like 12:30, came and built the login screen till like 3 a.m. last night. It's because I was like thinking about the screen and wanting to build it. So again, to recap, 1, I'm able to focus on the project. 2, I'm excited about the project and I can't wait to finish it so it can be that, like I said, crown jewel in my portfolio. And then the third one is my experience level. Like I feel like I've mentioned this before, and actually let me bring this up here. Give me 1 second. You guys have probably seen this before. If you've seen my previous videos, I talk about kind of like building up your experience bars, right? Like you start here and imagine like all your experience bars are just random iOS tasks, right? You start off as a brand new dev here, and then as you get to the mid-level dev, you start filling up your bars. And then as you get to the senior, more experienced dev, you really start filling these up. So I feel like I'm kind of starting to make the jump from mid-level to senior. Like I'm probably like in between this. So the reason I wanted to bring this up is because I'm in such a flow is because I'm not hitting any major roadblocks. Like don't get me wrong, there's some challenging stuff in the app, but I'm not like getting stuck on something for days. This app has voice recognition. I've never done that before, where you have to like parse out the voice that it finds and like do certain things based on keywords you find. I'm not saying it's like smooth sailing. There's no challenges at all, but I'm finding myself not like getting stuck on something for 3 days, which is usually, the discouraging thing about programming. So again, just the combination of experience, finally like it's all coming together. I can just knock out even some complex stuff fairly quickly. It's a project I love. I'm super excited about. Can't wait to show it off. And I'm able to focus like 95% of my time on it. So, I don't know if this applies to any of you guys if you're working on multiple projects, but this is why I believe that I am in this crazy state of flow. And like I've been putting in like 10, 11-hour days, and that seems like a lot, but because I'm in this flow, it doesn't feel like it. Like I'll just be head down, knocking out work, being crazy productive, knocking a bunch of stuff out, and I'll look up and be like, holy crap, this has been a 7-hour session. And I usually like break my sessions up into multiple times per day. So normally I'll do like 7 hours in a whole day, but like my morning session will end up being 7 hours because I just get in this flow and just, lose track of time. So like I said, this is when programming's super fun. You feel like a superstar, and it's not always like this, obviously. Definitely, if you do get into this kind of flow and you are experiencing this, like don't take it for granted, enjoy it, because there are many times in programming where you feel like the dumbest person alive and you're just banging your head against the wall against a simple problem or a complex problem that, probably has a simple fix. So anyway, I'm loving programming right now. Like I'm in a good mood because, like I said, it's been so fun this past week because it's been a great project to work on. And as you know, you can work on some pretty crappy projects that aren't that fun to work on. So I should be going back to dabbling in other projects like next week, not the week coming up, but the week after that. So hopefully I get one more week of this good like flow state before I go back to spreading my time between, 4 projects. So anyway, that's kind of my spiel on the workflow. I hope you found that interesting. If you have any questions about that or anything, go ahead and ask. I'm going to go ahead and catch up in the chat now. So give me 1 second here. Let me also get a drink. So Sanket says, when you had your first job at 60K, were you able to do well financially in SF, or did you run into some troubles? So I had savings built up. You can live on 60K. I had a roommate I don't have a roommate now, but I had a roommate at the time, and I did have like some savings saved up because if you know like my whole story, when I moved to San Francisco, I moved out here with no job. I didn't know anybody. I just moved out here and said I'm going to make it happen. But before I did that, I was able to over the years prior, save up enough to have 1 year of living expenses saved up. So I had some money in savings, long story short, and I didn't really have to tap into those savings because after I got to San Francisco, I got a job pretty much within a month. I mean, it wasn't a developer, but I got a job where I didn't have to eat away my savings, you know? So yeah, living on $60K if you're trying to have your own place in San Francisco, living in downtown in the city, like the most expensive part, would be rough. But like I said, I had savings built up and I had a roommate, so I was basically treading water, right? Like I was making enough to get by, not advancing anyway. But like I said, that $60K was only for the first 5 months. Within that 5-month period, I impressed them enough, and then they gave me a raise to 100. So, and then once I was up there, it was, everything was fine there. So kind of the moral of that story is if you can afford to take a lesser salary to prove yourself, I know a lot of people say get paid for what you're worth, and I knew I was worth more than 60, but like I said, and I've told this story before, but at the time I had no leverage. I was fresh out of a boot camp. I've never been a developer before. I needed to find a company to take a chance on me. And when somebody takes a chance on you, they're probably not going to pay you top dollar. So I took the lesser salary and I was confident I would prove myself and then, either ask for a raise or move on from the company. And it worked out. So that's the story there. SD says, hi from India. What's going on? Gautam says, hi, from when you are in iOS programming? I've been doing it for about 2.5 years now. I think that's what you were asking. Hi from the Republic of Moldova. What's going on, Vadim? Oleg says, how to getting info about network parameters in excuse me, in Xcode for iOS. Needs cell ID, LAC, TAC parameters, cell information. That's a pretty specific question. I'm not 100% sure what you're asking. Yeah, we'll have to pass on that one. Sorry, Oleg. Gustavo, Sean, storyboard or no storyboard? I actually haven't talked about this in a little bit, but I'm team storyboard. I won't dive into it too much. My usual spiel is while you're learning, I think you should learn in code programmatically because I think that's going to teach you what's going on under the hood, like I say, much better than storyboard. Storyboard's kind of just like magic. Like, oh, you put this button on a screen and you have no idea what goes on, but the button's there. Like, you shouldn't do that. You should learn what's actually going on in the view while you're learning. So for learners, I think non-storyboard or programmatically is better. Once you learn that and once you understand that, I like storyboard because I think it declutters my code. And it's just a personal preference, personal style. I like my view controllers in my code to be as clean and clutter-free as possible. So putting all that UI code in there, to me, in my opinion, clutters it up. And I would much rather see that in storyboard. But again, once you know what's going on, like how a UI button is actually populated on the screen. Again, while you're learning, it's going to benefit you a lot more to do it programmatically. It's my opinion. Idris says, Sean, found a hint about server-side Swift already. We would love for you to make a video on it. So I haven't dabbled in server-side Swift yet. I want to, for sure. But I don't know if it's quite ready yet. And I'm not quite ready yet either. I'm too busy. I don't have time for much these days. But definitely in the future, for sure, I want to get into it. Just not quite yet. Harden MVP. It's too early. Giannis is going to be MVP. He's been on a tear. All right, LA Waitress, what's going on? Says, when a UI view controller relies on a data source to construct its views, I'm assuming like a table view, where some views won't be drawn, is UI table view really the only option? That's the most common option. Obviously, collection view has a data source as well. I'm sure there's others. Maybe there not be. I just don't know off the top of my head. But that is, 99% of the time we're using a data source. It's going to be collection view or table view. Again, I'm sure somebody will correct me in the comments or in the chats. I'm sure there's other possibilities, but those are by far the most common. So the goal is to draw a skeleton view and then populate views as data comes in. Yeah, that's stuff you can do. That's called, I think I've heard it called like optimistic UI or something like that. I know what you're talking about. Like Facebook does it. Like as soon as you load Facebook, you see like the outline of each post, but the data's not there. I don't necessarily know if that's specifically like a data source, like a table view data source. I think, and I haven't done this, so I'm just kind of spitballing off the top of my head. I haven't looked into this, but I kind of think you kind of do that on your own in the UI. Like you present a UI, and then once you load your data, like in the completion handler, you'll upload all the data. but you'll just present a different UI essentially while you're waiting. It's almost like a glorified loading spinner, right? Normally you see the spinner and that's all it is the spinner. We'll just imagine that optimistic UI being your spinner, where you're showing just a skeletal UI, like you said. And then once the data comes in, normally you would hide your spinner and show your view. Well, in this case, you're just hiding your skeletal UI and showing your normal view. Again, that's just off the top of my head. I've never implemented that. I've just kind of seen it and read about it a little. So if that was wrong, forgive me. Simran says, how to start learning iOS development. Any resources which I can stick to? I'm going to plug this. People probably think I work for them. And I'm going to tell a little funny story too. So I always plug raywunderlich.com. It is, I'll type it into the chat here. It's raywunderlich.com. So I plug them all the time. People probably think I'm on the payroll or I have an affiliate link. I don't. I just like the site. But it's kind of funny. Ray Wunderlich himself actually emailed me the other day saying somebody had told him that I was constantly plugging their site on my channel. And he sent me a nice thank you email, said he checked out a couple of videos on my channel, says he really likes the way I teach things. Just very, very nice, very complimentary. But it was kind of funny that, that site pretty much taught me how to be, it really got me started becoming an iOS developer. And I still, refer to it all the time to this day, and I plug it all the time. So it was nice to hear, from the man himself, a thank you and a compliment on the channel. So it's kind of funny, but no, I'm not on the payroll. No, I don't have an affiliate link. I truly believe it's a really good site. It is $20 a month to get all the videos. And I understand everybody's got different money situations, but that is well worth it rather than spending on Udacity or going to a boot camp or whatever. I mean, $20 a month is nothing when you compare it to those other sites. So highly recommended, and you can spend months going through all those videos, and they start from beginner level all the way up to advanced. So I would highly recommend that. And then obviously YouTube University is what I call it. I mean, there's tons of great YouTube channels. I'm not going to go through naming them because I'll probably forget somebody and I don't want to offend anybody, but yeah, just watch mine. No, just kidding. There's a bunch out there that you can check out. Zach says, hey, Sean, thanks for putting out so much great content. Appreciate it. Not sure if you're the Zach from Fireside Swift or not. If you are, cool. Thanks for the support. It's a great podcast. Check that out. If you're not that Zach, I'm sorry. Sanka says, how do you deal with questions which you don't know in an interview? So that's actually a good question, and I haven't gotten that one before. So thanks for asking that, Sanka. I find sometimes on the live chat, I just answer the same questions over and over again. So this is a new one. Let me grab a drink before I go into it. Yeah, so I think the number one thing is don't try to BS your way through it. Don't try to fake like because they can see through that, right? They know when you're BSing. If you've ever been in a conversation with somebody and they're trying to explain something and you can tell you're this guy has no idea what he's talking about. That'll come through in the interview, and that's worse. Trying to snake your way into the answer than just flat out saying you know what, I don't know that, or you know what, I've seen this before, I've read it, but I don't quite fully understand it, but here's what I understand about it, and then literally just give what you know. So the moral of that story is don't bullshit your way through an answer. Just be honest. People like honesty. People don't like people that are going to try and BS them. So there's that one. What is the best way to start an iOS dev according to you? Freelance or a company? Definitely with a company. Freelance is tough because you're 100% responsible for everything, building the app from scratch, most likely. Sometimes you'll work on a team as a freelancer, but for the most part, you're building the app 100% on your own. As a junior developer just starting out, I don't think that's a good idea. However, when you're with a company, most likely you're going to be on a team with a more senior developer, and that'll help you grow immensely. So definitely I would recommend as a company. That being said, earlier in your career, maybe your first job, your first year and a half, it's kind of what I did, at a company is good. However, earlier in your career, if you can switch to contracting or even do contracting on the side as side projects, that is immensely helpful. So like I mentioned, I spent the first year and a half of my career at a startup working on one app, just their app, very narrow focus. Don't get me wrong, I learned a lot, but this past 8 months that I've been contracting full time, I have learned so much more because I've probably built 6 apps in that 8 months. Whereas like I said before, the first year and a half, I was only working on one app. It was a pretty simple app, to be honest. So the past 8 months being exposed to a bunch of different code bases, a bunch of different types of apps. I mean, I've done stuff, like I said, from social networks, doing push-to-talk, like walkie-talkie type apps. I'm dealing with voice. This diet and fitness app that I'm working on now, what's another one, like a payment systems app. So you just get a lot of exposure to a bunch of different stuff when you're contracting. So I would recommend trying to do it early in your career. I wouldn't recommend doing it the very first thing in your career. Hey Sean, do you think the state you were talking about for a developer's flow is methodically, I mispronounced that, whatever, reproducible, or it's more like when the stars align kind of thing? I mean, like I said, it is kind of the first time I've really experienced it. It's kind of why I wanted to talk about it. So I've experienced it for a long period of time. I mean, I've experienced it within sessions where I'll have like a good 3-hour session of, good stuff, but for like a sustained week of it, this is the first time I've had that. So I don't know. I'm going to try to reproduce it. Like I said, I gave the 3 reasons I thought I'm able to focus 100% on it. So maybe instead of trying to like work on 4 different contracts, maybe I set aside like, okay, this week is, contract A week. This week is contract B week. I don't know. That could be something to try to reproduce it. The second thing I said was you just have to love the project. That's not really methodically reproducible. You just have to find a good project there. And then the third thing was the experience, which I do think that is, the stars just kind of have to align. And that will come with time. Obviously, the more experienced you are, the more that's going to come into play. So I don't know. We'll see. SK, can you tell me how to start on device-to-device notification? Let's say I want to let my user know if a new message has arrived from another user in my app using Firebase backend. How can I do that? So these types of questions, and SK, I appreciate you asking. Don't take this the wrong way, but these types of questions are not good for live streams because these are very specific coding questions that I would have to like research and like look at the code base. I can't answer that in a live stream. This is more so like a tutorial that I would have to like research and do. So, just putting that out there for those types of like in-depth coding questions. That's pretty hard for me to, just answer off the top of my head. So LA Waitress says, great vid, Sean. Thanks for the help. No problem. Thanks for the support, LA Waitress. I've seen you comment a lot on the videos. Gene says, hi, Sean. Have you ever thought about releasing your live streams as podcasts on iTunes? It would be more convenient to listen to on the go. Actually, yes. This is why I mentioned earlier I got this nice little mic. The sole purpose for this was for podcasts, essentially. One, I might be on one soon. I don't want to like jinx that. We'll see how that goes. But another one is, yes, I do want to, not just the live streams, pretty much all my videos, convert those to podcasts. It's just, I say it all the time. I'm doing 40, 50 hours a week of contracting, YouTube. It's just not enough hours in the day. But yes, Gene, it is something I want to do. I'm not, like I said, it's not me like starting a podcast. It's just me repurposing my content for podcast form because I know it's easier to like listen to it on your commute rather than like watch my video. So that is coming. I'll give a little tidbit too into the future. So my plan for the future is to apply to the major companies here in San Francisco at the beginning of 2018. I have said that. It's a short list. So I'm not just like trying to get a full-time job just to get a full-time job. It's a very short list of companies that I think will just further my career. That probably came out wrong that I'm just using them as a launching pad. Obviously, I want to work at a great... So the chapters in my career so far have been small startup, contracting, independent contractor. So I feel like the one piece I'm missing is like a large company and a large team. So I want that experience. And then, so like I said, it's just a small list of companies. Where I'm going with this is if I don't get those companies, which we're talking like, I mean, it's like Apple, it's like the biggest companies in the world. So by no means is it guaranteed that I'll get those jobs. Actually, probably unlikely. But that's what I'm going for. And if that doesn't work out, then I'm going to go hardcore into contracting and hardcore trying to build this YouTube channel into something, that could potentially be a full-time thing. And when that comes, that's when I'm going to, start repurposing the content into podcasts. So that was a very long answer to say probably after the first of the year, I'll start doing that. Lord Waterwalker says, what website did you just talk about? Actually, if you scroll up, Lord, I don't know, maybe you just joined. It's raywunderlich.com. Yeah, if you scroll up in the chat a little bit, it's like 2 messages above you. Zach says, okay, so you are from Fireside Swift. Thanks for listening. Yep. Appreciate the support as usual. Oh, hi, Sean. I wonder where knowledge of Objective-C++ C, C++, whatever, maybe in handy. Should I dive deep into it? I don't think so. Yes, it can come in handy, sure, but if you're just learning programming, just focus on Swift. Like if you try to spread yourself too thin between like, you know, trying to learn Objective-C, trying to learn Swift, trying to learn C++, like you're just not going to get anywhere. So focus on one. I would say Swift. Or if you're an experienced developer, then yes, start dabbling. But of course, it can come in handy. But I think if you spread yourself too thin, it's not gonna benefit you. You know, Mark giving another shout out to Fireside Swift. Yep. Okay, I'll answer. Like I said, I'm cutting this one short at 9:30, so a couple more minutes. Looks like I got a few more questions. I'll kind of like breeze through these real quick to make sure I get to everybody. But if you have any last second quick questions, go ahead and ask them, and I'll pretty much go till I get to the end of the chat, and then I got to take off. Nicholas says, do you think there's work for cross-platform developers, or is it only native iOS developers? Of course, there's work for cross-platform developers. You know, startups or smaller companies that are looking to save money that can't afford a full-time iOS dev and a full-time Android dev, or a company that just wants one code base to maintain. You know, there's plenty of reasons to go with cross-platform development. So yes, there's going to be plenty of opportunities, and then I believe there's always going to be opportunities for native. I shouldn't say always, but for the foreseeable future, definitely going to be opportunities for native devs. Obviously, you know, something could come and replace the iPhone, and then we'll be talking about a completely different native thing. Anyway, do you think? No, I just asked that. Elliot Waitress says, it is not what you know that's most important. Nobody can know everything. It's knowing where to find what you don't know. Yep, exactly. And that kind of goes back to the question, too, about how do you handle a question you don't know? You know, be honest, tell them that you don't know it, but also tell them that, like, hey, I would know where to find it, and this is how I would solve that problem. Hey, Sean, I'm watching from PH. Great videos. Thank you, RJ. Appreciate it. Zach says, yeah, I'm here all the time. Sean's a cool guy. Thanks, Mark. You'll see just how cool I am in a little bit. Just kidding. Socially awkward. Weird. Do you think learning server-side Swift is good for iOS developers? I think eventually, yeah. I don't think it's there yet. I hope it gets there. And by there, I mean like ready for full-time production. A lot of companies are using it. I don't think it's there yet. Fingers crossed, I'm rooting for it. I really hope it does get there, because I do want to learn server-side code, and if I can just do it in Swift rather than like learning a new language, that'd be great. So, but again, I don't think it's there yet, so I hope it will be worth learning. I don't know if it is now. Article 95, we do a tutorial on RX Swift. Not anytime soon. I have dabbled in reactive Swift very, very minimally. I would have to work with it a lot more to do a tutorial on it, to feel confident enough to do a tutorial on it. I just haven't worked with it enough. It only came up in one of my contracts, and it was very minimally. Zach says, what denotes the difference between a junior iOS dev and a senior iOS dev? Everyone seems fixated on timeline. Yeah, 3 years experience, but that doesn't take skills into account. Yeah, I mean, this is obviously, there's no black and white answer for this. Unfortunately, a lot of people do rely on the years of experience, and I kind of agree with the sentiment of your question that you shouldn't. That's not the only thing that comes into play. But going back to for those that didn't see it, going back to my images here, I believe it's just your skill level, which is it's the reason I think people do timeline is because it's very hard to gauge your skill level on just a short intro or just a short interview or a short review of your projects. You don't. If you've ever worked with other developers before, you don't really get a grasp for their skill level until you've worked with them for a little bit. Then you can really appreciate what they can do. So yeah, I do believe what really denotes it is your skill level and your competency. However, I get why people go with the experience because that's just the quickest way to do it. Another question, how do you deal with the imposter syndrome or the feeling on getting stuck on something? So I haven't had the imposter syndrome lately just because I've been independent contracting, so I've been working for myself. I had the imposter syndrome for sure during my first job when I had no dev experience at all. But now I think it's hard to answer this question because I just haven't felt it, because when you're independent contracting, you just kind of work for yourself. You're not surrounded by a bunch of more senior devs where you're like, oh my God, why I don't belong with these guys. So, and then the feeling of getting stuck on something, you actually have to, don't get me wrong, nobody likes getting stuck. It's frustrating, but you have to kind of like the journey of solving that problem, getting unstuck. Like that feeling when you finally solve it and get unstuck, like if that's like euphoric to you and you love that, and that's what helps. So that's what gets me through. Like I know that, like, I know you're never going to be stuck forever. And now I've built a network of, and this is why I always preach, like, get to know people on Twitter or get to know people you work with, or like my Slack community and Patreon. Because now you have people to reach out to get unstuck. So when you just have nobody to reach out to and you're just stuck by yourself, that's when people like quit programming altogether. Like that's the situation that's bad, that you don't want to find yourself in. They just keep getting stuck and they're stuck on the same problem for 3 weeks and they just throw their hands up and they're like, I'm done. How do I get unstuck is definitely build your network of developers for sure. Evika says, hi Sean, can you give me a few advice on about motivation? Paragraph, because I'm trying to get a job as an iOS dev. How much should I tell about my past works, or should I write? Not 100% sure how to answer this question, Evika. I do have a lot of videos on, I don't know how familiar you are with the channel, but if you go through, I have like I think I call it like thoughts and experiences playlist. I talk all about, you know, getting my first job, my resume, all kinds of stuff. It'd be too much to dive into because this is a pretty vague question. Too much to dive into in the live stream, but definitely check out that playlist about how I got my first job, my resume, all this stuff. I go pretty in depth about that. I think that'll help you out a lot. Jose says, what websites do you use to get a junior iOS job? I've been looking at Indeed, but there isn't many. Should I still apply? If they require 3 years experience, I have 1 year experience. So the second part of the question, should I still apply, is yes. So many times, like, I don't know, they put that number up there, but so many times it's, I don't know, it's just a suggestion. Like they'll hire if they find the right person and you only have like a 1.5 years experience, like they'll hire you, but you have to be the right person. I'm not saying that they'll just hire you for nothing. The first question is what websites do you use junior iOS job? Because I'm in San Francisco, I think it's probably a little different. I don't use it now, but I used AngelList.co. That is a great site to find a bunch of different startups to see what they're looking for. So that would be the one I go to for sure. And I do know they post remote jobs on there. So I don't know where you live, Jose. But yeah, definitely check out AngelList.co for sure. And then you can sort by like remote jobs, I believe, as well. And then a lot of my other job offers have, well, at the risk of sounding arrogant. Okay, so let me preface it with that. Like I use LinkedIn to get referrals, but now I'm to the point where like I'm not like looking at websites because, like I said, the companies I'm applying to is like a short list of companies. So you know it's like the Apples of the world, the Facebooks of the world, Lyfts, Airbnbs. So it's like I don't really have to like find them on a website. You know, like I know people there and I know how to get in touch with actual iOS developers at those companies to hopefully get my resume in. So that's kind of what you should be shooting for, is to get to this place where you know developers at that company, not know them maybe, but have interacted with them on Twitter or something like that, or, you know, built up a relationship with them somehow. And again, Twitter's great for that. I always recommend that. But again, when you're building that relationship, don't build it with like, hey, get me a job. Like, don't start with that. You know, genuinely build a relationship with a bunch of different developers. It's just building your network. It's not what you know, it's who you know. Is there another SK, there's another approach, and that is through push notifications. Okay, that's something different. All right, I really got to go, so I'm going to like speed through these questions. It's lightning round right now. Hey Sean, I love your channel. You help me out a lot. Any tips on how to safely load database data into a Swift app? I find it pretty difficult. Carlo, that's I think you probably just joined. That's another one of those trickier coding questions that's more of an in-depth answer. Unfortunately, like I said, I got to get going here, so I can't dive into that. Carlo, my apologies. Javine says, hi Sean, keep posting videos. All the best. Thank you. Absolutely love, recommend Node.js server-side framework. Easy to learn, a lot like Swift. Yeah, that's what I started learning when I started dabbling in server-side stuff, and that's what I went with, was Node.js. So I appreciate what you're saying, Carlo. I agree with you. But at the same time, with my time limitations, I am I'm just waiting for server-side Swift, to be honest with you. All the contracts I work on, I have like a professional full-time back-end web developer, so I never have to build my databases. So it's not a problem for me now. That's kind of why I can push it off. But yeah, so I'm just waiting for Swift. Zach says +1 for Angel. Yeah, it is Angel. Is it angel.co or angellist.co? Just Google it, you'll find it. The logo is like 2 fingers given a peace sign. But yeah, great site. Turan says, will pet projects help in getting iOS developer jobs? Do they count as experience? I would say yes, because what I have found is interviewers like the fact that you have a passion project and something you're passionate about, right? Like you didn't just build a table view tutorial and say, look what I did. They appreciate the fact that you had an idea, you created that idea, and then you shipped that idea. And it was all your own idea, your passion, something you're really into. That says a lot more than building just a complex tutorial that you have no connection to. So yes, I do think pet projects are useful. iOS says, which design pattern is most compatible to write unit test cases? To be honest with you, I don't have that much experience with unit testing. We don't really do it in contracting because the clients are always worried about hours, and they're on a budget. So at least in my experience, and I'm sure this is not the case everywhere, but with independent contracting, when you're like the sole developer, typically testing goes out the window. Not like overall testing, but like writing unit tests. And that is because those take time, and the client is like, hey, I need this done in 150 hours, so that's kind of what happens. So unfortunately, and I do know this is something I have to work on. I'm not saying it's the right answer, but I need to work on my unit testing, and so I can't answer that question because I don't have much experience there. All right, a couple of last questions. Michael says, Sean, congrats on your channel. Great content. Watching from Sao Paulo, Brazil. Thank you. Could you make a video on how to use optionals? I would like to know the best practices. I've actually already done that, Michael. If you go into the iOS interview question series, there's a video called Unwrapping Optionals. Check that out, and I think that'll answer your question. If it doesn't, leave a comment on that video. And if you guys haven't, I'm pretty good about answering my comments on my videos. So if that doesn't answer your question, leave a comment, and I'll do my best to answer it. All right, last question before I got to go actually play some basketball for the first time in 3 weeks. Hey, Sean, computer science or software engineering? I really don't know. If you don't know my background, I don't have a computer science degree. I just kind of changed careers as an adult. I was 33 years old when I became a developer. So I do know about this debate. I know a lot of people debate these two topics. However, I don't know enough firsthand to really have an intelligent opinion on this debate. I write code. That's all I know. So, okay. All right, guys. Appreciate you coming. Sorry for the short live chat. I enjoy talking to you guys. I wish it could go on longer, but like I said, I haven't played basketball in 3 weeks due to an injury. This is my first day back, so I'm super pumped to go. We'll see you guys next week. I don't know what I'm going to do for the stream next week. I might do a continuation on the design where I actually build a screen. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't want to promise that. But we'll see you guys next week, Sunday morning, 9 a.m. If you want to get the notifications, make sure you hit that bell because I know a lot of people miss the start of it and they come in late. But all right, guys. See you next week.